Imagine a world where your very humanity was denied, your intellect dismissed before you even spoke. Imagine being told you were incapable of high-level thought, of creativity, of soul. Now imagine defying all of that. This isn't just a story from the past. It's a living testament to the power of the human spirit, a narrative that shatters centuries of prejudice and ignorance. Our story begins not in Boston, but on the sun-drenched shores of West Africa, around the year 1753. We don't know her birth name, nor the exact location, but we know she was a child of a vibrant land, a place rich with culture, language, and the deep rhythms of ancestral life. Then, abruptly, her world was shattered. At just 7 or 8 years old, she was violently snatched from her home, her family, and everything she knew. This was the brutal reality of the transatlantic slave trade, a horrific system that forcibly displaced millions of Africans, tearing them from their roots and subjecting them to unimaginable cruelty. This young girl, barely more than a toddler, endured this terror, a tiny life tossed into the vortex of one of history's greatest crimes. She arrived in Boston, a port city bustling with colonial life, frail and traumatized, carrying within her the unspoken trauma of her stolen childhood. Upon her arrival in Boston in 1761, a young girl, sick and weak, was put up for sale on the docks. John Wheatley, a wealthy tailor and merchant, and his wife Susanna purchased her. They named her Phillis, after the schooner that brought her to America, and gave her their surname, Wheatley. The Wheatley family, particularly Susanna and her children, Mary and Nathaniel, noticed Phyllis's keen intelligence, her quick mind, and an insatiable curiosity that shone in her eyes. Instead of sending her to labor in the fields or serve solely as a domestic, they began to teach her. This was a radical act for the time. In the 18th century, it was widely believed and often legally enforced that enslaved people should not be educated. The prevailing racist ideology asserted that black people were inherently inferior, incapable of learning complex subjects, and that education would only incite rebellion. Yet Phyllis devoured every lesson. She learned to read and write English with astonishing speed. She was soon reading the Bible, classical literature, and ancient history. She studied Latin, Greek mythology, and British poetry. The Wheatley home, filled with books and intellectual conversation, became her unexpected academy. This rigorous intellectual training, combined with her innate talent, nurtured a poetic voice that would soon emerge, unique and powerful, shattering every expectation and challenging the very foundations of racial prejudice. Her experience starkly contrasted with the millions of other enslaved individuals who were deliberately kept illiterate, their minds and spirits suppressed. As Phyllis grew, so did her command of language, transforming her observations and insights into verse. By her early teens, she was already composing sophisticated poems. Her early works often explored themes deeply rooted in her life experiences and the intellectual environment she inhabited. Faith and religious devotion were central, reflecting the Christian teachings she received. Her poems spoke of God's grace, salvation, and the moral order of the universe. Yet interwoven with these spiritual reflections were more subtle, poignant expressions of loss, a yearning for liberty, and a profound empathy for human suffering. While she rarely directly condemned slavery in her published works, a pragmatic choice for an enslaved person seeking publication, her longing for freedom was often couched in metaphor, drawing parallels between spiritual liberation and earthly emancipation. She eloquently articulated the hypocrisy of a society that championed liberty while denying it to an entire race. Her lexicon was rich, her imagery vivid, and her poetic structures complex. For example, in her poem On Imagination, she writes, "Now here, now there, the roving fancy flies, till after distant scenes and wonders sought, it shows all objects that have charmed the thought." This wasn't the simple rhyme of a novice. It was the work of a highly trained, deeply thoughtful poet. Her ability to craft such intricate and beautiful verse directly challenged the insidious, pervasive, racist ideologies of her time. The common belief was that Black people lacked the capacity for such elevated thought or artistic expression. Phillis Wheatley's very existence, let alone her published poems, was a living, breathing refutation of this lie. Her intellectual prowess served as irrefutable evidence that enslaved people were not only capable of high-level thought and creativity, but could excel in it. She forced those who upheld slavery to confront a disturbing truth. The chains on her body did not extend to her mind or spirit. Her poetry became a powerful, silent weapon against the injustice of her era, articulating complex thoughts and emotions with grace and undeniable talent. Despite her undeniable talent, getting her work published presented immense challenges. In colonial America, the idea of an enslaved African woman writing poetry, let alone publishing a book, was almost unthinkable. Local printers in Boston were hesitant, steeped in the prejudice that denied Black people intellectual capacity. They feared that the public would not believe an enslaved person could have authored such sophisticated verses, or worse, that such a publication would challenge the established social order. It was a vicious cycle. She was deemed incapable of authorship because she was Black and enslaved, and her attempts to prove her authorship were met with skepticism precisely because of that status. To overcome this seemingly insurmountable barrier, the Wheatley family, with the support of prominent Bostonians who admired Phillis's work, took an extraordinary step. In 1772, a panel of 18 of Boston's most distinguished gentlemen, including Governor Thomas Hutchinson, John Hancock, whose signature would later grace the Declaration of Independence, and various ministers and scholars, convened to interrogate Phillis Wheatley. They examined her, questioned her, and scrutinized her poems. The purpose of this trial was to verify that she, an enslaved African woman, was indeed the author of the poetry attributed to her. After their examination, they signed an attestation, a document declaring that she had, without any assistance from tutors, composed several poems, confirming her authenticity. This unprecedented public defense of her intellectual capacity was a crucial step, but even with this endorsement, she still struggled to find a publisher in America. Recognizing the dead end in Boston, the Wheatleys sought help from England. With the patronage of Selina Hastings, the Countess of Huntingdon, Phillis Wheatley's book, Poems on Various Subjects, Religious and Moral, was finally published in London in 1773. She traveled to London herself to oversee the publication, a remarkable journey for an enslaved woman. The book was an immediate sensation, making her the first African-American woman and only the third American woman of any race to publish a book of poetry. This achievement sent shock waves through the intellectual circles on both sides of the Atlantic. It was an undeniable, tangible piece of evidence that directly contradicted the widely held, deeply racist belief that Black people were inherently inferior and incapable of intellectual or artistic accomplishment. Her success forced many to question their ingrained prejudices, even if it didn't immediately dismantle the institution of slavery itself. Phillis Wheatley's book was not just a collection of poems. It was a powerful manifesto for human dignity and intellectual equality, shattering societal norms and demonstrating the boundless potential of the human mind, regardless of skin color or social status. Phillis Wheatley's unique position, an enslaved person living in an intellectual household and recognized for her genius, offered her a distinctive lens through which to view the tumultuous events of her time, particularly the growing calls for liberty that sparked the American Revolution. While her published works often used subtle language, one can discern a deep and nuanced perspective on enslavement. Direct condemnation of the institution was a dangerous path for an enslaved writer, but her longing for freedom was unmistakable. In her poem, On Being Brought from Africa to America, she famously wrote, "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand that there's a God, that there's a Savior too. Once I redemption neither sought and knew." While this seemingly accepts the mercy of her forced journey, scholars often interpret it as a complex expression. It speaks to her conversion to Christianity, which she embraced, but it also subtly highlights the stark contrast between her spiritual salvation and her earthly bondage. Powerful anthem for freedom, intellect, and the undying quest for human dignity. Phillis Wheatley's life was a profound testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome unimaginable adversity. She wasn't just a poet. She was a revolutionary, a trailblazer whose intellect dismantled the racist lies of her time and carved a permanent place for herself in the annals of history and literature. To dive deeper into her incredible story and other powerful stories like hers, subscribe to Slave Memory Chronicles. Thanks for watching.